I will certainly take sannyas from him. He's speaking to Lord Nityananda. The 5 persons you may tell are my mother, Gadadha, Brahmananda Bharati, Sri Chandrasekhar Acharya, and Mukunda. The Lord said this to Nityananda Swarup in private, so no one else knew. Thereafter, Nityananda Prabhu told those 5 persons about the Lord's coming departure. And then there's a description of how he spent the last day just before he left. Let me chant some prayers. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharane Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarne Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadha Shivas Adi Gaura Bhaktivrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Vanchakalpatarubhyas cha kripa sindubhya evacha, Patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. So Lord Chaitanya, of course, you know, I'm sure you're all aware, or at least basically aware, Lord Chaitanya is the most recent incarnation of Krishna. And, well, of course we know it's load shedding, isn't it? But it's kind of atmospheric. It's a little atmospheric rather than just bright lights. So it's quite pleasant, actually, for a while. So Lord Chaitanya is the most recent incarnation of Krishna. Lord Krishna appeared about 5,000 years ago, approximately. And just right at the end, right at the very end of the previous yuga, there are 4 yugas, or universal sort of cosmic time periods. Hare Krishna. First is Satya Yuga, which is like a golden age. Then there's Treta Yuga, which is like a silver age. And then there's Dwapara Yuga, which is sort of like a bronze age, something like that. And then there's Kali Yuga, which is the Iron Age. Oh, Krishna. And I don't think I need to tell you. It's not very nice. It's just incredible, actually. It's amazing how bad it is. Even from when I was young, you know, like the 50s, but in my teenage years in the 60s, things have really gone downhill. It's just amazing. It's amazing. I was brought up in Auckland in New Zealand, and it used to be any time, day or night, you could walk through the center of the city on your own at midnight, and it wouldn't be a problem. No one ever thought it might be a problem. But now you can't. It's too dangerous. You got to go with a group. Otherwise, who knows what'll happen. Anyway, you know what I mean. It's not good. So this is Kali Yuga, very degraded age. And Krishna, though, he appeared right at the end of the Dwapara Yuga, the age before, the sort of Bronze Age, where things were really a lot better than they are now. And Lord Krishna, well, during that Dwapara Yuga, the immediate previous age, the Bronze Age, the prescribed religious activity was deity worship, as we see here. Very small but very nice altar with Shalagram Shila and Gopal and Srila Prabhupada. It's really nice. So that was the prescribed activity, and generally everyone would do that. Everyone generally was very religious. And that's what they did, and that's what Lord Krishna taught. We don't see those teachings so much, but if you read Srimad Bhagavatam, the 11th canto, the 11th canto, right towards the end, there Lord Krishna is instructing Uddhava just before he leaves this world, just immediately before. And one of the chapters is Lord Krishna explaining in detail how to do deity worship. But now it's Kali Yuga. So in this age, this very difficult age, very dangerous age, and so much degradation, and it's just, a lot of it's just crazy, actually. Not fit for human beings. But in this age, Krishna has come as Lord Chaitanya. And he's referred to as Chana Avatar. Chana means hidden or like secret. Not like Lord Krishna. Lord Krishna was you could say very out front that he was God. He made no secret of it, and he would display his godhood very vividly, quite often. And of course, particularly we know in Bhagavad Gita in the 11th chapter, in front of so many people. In the 11th chapter, Lord Krishna displayed his universal form, Vishvarup or Virat Rup. They both mean universal form. To Arjuna, and it was very dramatic. If you've read Bhagavad Gita, I'm sure you've read that part. It's so striking. And it was such... Well, basically, Lord Krishna showed how he is everywhere throughout the universe. He is within all literally everything, actually, for that matter. As Lord Brahma says, Andantara Paramanu Chayantarastam. That Krishna is he's so big, he's unlimited, but he's so small. He's within the atom, within the smallest particle of existence. So he showed that, and it was very shocking for Arjuna. And it's described that the experience for Arjuna was something like having a heart attack. By the grace of the Lord, Hare Krishna, I have not had a heart attack. I don't know if any of you have. You would be able to tell us, but I've heard it's really quite something. There's one devotee who passed away actually from a heart attack, but he had a couple of heart attacks before, and I remember visiting him in the hospital in Durban, the day after he had a heart attack, and just his face, it was a little difficult. A little difficult to recognize him, actually. You know, like, I don't know if you've seen a dead body, the face within a day or a couple of days, the face really looks different. So his face, he was still alive. And you could see he was in a state of deep shock. So it said that Arjuna, when he saw the universal form, which was so extremely dramatic, that it was so shocking and devastating that it was something like having a heart attack. And it said that Arjuna was a warrior, and he had lived his life to that point, regularly taking part in warfare, actually, and fighting hand to hand regularly, very regularly. And so he was used to seeing things which sort of normal people would consider very shocking, like, people getting their heads cut off and so incredible things like that, which I don't think any of us have ever seen. But he had seen a lot of that sort of thing, and he could just handle it and manage it, and it was not really such a big thing for him, but when he saw that universal form, it was so overpowering that he almost died. It was very close, the shocking effect of it. And it was just because he had had so much experience of seeing sights which for your average person are extremely shocking. He was used to it, that he didn't just die on the spot. Yes. So, yes, that was Krishna in chapter 11 of the Bhagavad Gita. So, yes. So my point there is that Krishna did things like that. It was, often actually. Like when Krishna was just a child in Vrindavan, every day he would kill a demon, or generally 2. So it's hundreds of them for the years he was there. He started herding the cows, or the calves actually, and then later the cows, but he started when he was 3. And from that time on, every day at lunchtime and in the later afternoon, a demon would come, and there'd be a battle, and Krishna would kill them. Yeah, in fact, Prabhupada describes it actually in one of the chapters, the earlier part of the 10th canto, the chapter about, what's his name? Anyway, one of the demons, not Narakasura, but one of the demons that he killed, Agasura. Yes. So Prabhupada explains this point, how every day one demon would come in the middle of the day, and then another one in the later afternoon, and it was almost like clockwork. And it became like a routine that the first demon would come sort of midday, 1 o'clock, something like that, every day. And there'd be this big battle. Krishna would kill the demon, and then It was a sign. Everyone knew, time for lunch. It was the signal every day. Oh, okay, demon's dead, lunch break. And then they'd carry on with their cow herding, and the next demon would come later on, I don't know, 4 or 5, just before it's getting dark, and the same thing. And then when that happened, it was a sign, okay, time to go home. And Prabhupada explains that if that hadn't happened to interrupt their pastimes, they wouldn't have gone home, because they're just having so much fun, enjoying life with Krishna. Yes, so like I said, Krishna, Lord Ram also, they displayed very openly, Lord Nrsingadev displayed very openly how they are God. They're not just some kind of little bit special person, a little bit more powerful or clever or something like that, but they're just in a totally different category of person altogether. Yes, so, but when Lord Chaitanya came, he didn't do like that. In fact, Chana Avatar, hidden incarnation of the Lord, and there were reasons, and hidden to the point that when sometimes people, like particularly some of his close devotees and associates, they would understand, he is actually an incarnation of Lord Krishna. He really is. And they'd say to him that, yes, we've understood, you are an incarnation of the Lord. And they'd want to worship him and just really make a big thing of it. But Lord Chaitanya would block his ears, and he'd call out, Vishnu, 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 and tell them, you stop that. Yes. In fact, there's an interesting little passage. It's in Chaitanya Charitamrita, in the Madhya Leela, somewhere. Or it's around chapter 21, I think, or it might be 22, something like that. Lord Chaitanya speaking to Sanatana Goswami. Sanatana Goswami knew that Lord Chaitanya is the Supreme Lord. But he knew that generally people didn't know, and he felt that people should know. And he should get Lord Chaitanya to just admit it once and for all. All right, I'm God. So what he did, Lord Chaitanya was instructing him about the avatars. Oh. Okay, Hare Krishna. Yes, there's 6 types of avatars of the Lord. There's Leela avatars, Guna avatars, Purusha avatars, Manvantara avatars, and Yuga avatars, and there's one other. There's one other. So there are these different types of avatars with different functions. And Lord Chaitanya was explaining about them to Sanatana Goswami. And he came to the Yuga avatars. Did I mention the Purusha avatars? I don't think so. Yeah, I think that's the 6th type of avatar. Form of the Lord, different types who descend with different functions. They do different things and they act differently. so Lord Chaitanya is explaining about the yuga avatars who come in the different yugas and establish the prescribed religious activity for the particular yuga. So they're called the Yuga Avatar. And Lord Chaitanya took that role. He took that role, teaching the particular religious activity for this age of Kali Yuga. So, and Sanatana Goswami knew that. He wanted Lord Chaitanya to admit it. Hare Krishna. Welcome. Suswagatam. Yes, so Lord Chaitanya is explaining, yes, in the Satya Yuga, the Yuga avatar was Kapila. It was Lord Kapila. If you're familiar with Srimad Bhagavatam, in the 3rd canto, Lord Kapila is described. And in the Treta Yuga, the Yuga avatar is Lord Yagya. And in the Dwapara Yuga, Krishna took that role. And Sanatana Goswami said, so Lord Chaitanya's been explaining these things, and then Sanatana Goswami said, I heard in Kali Yuga there's also a Yuga avatar. And Lord Chaitanya said, yes, there is. And Sanatana said, and I heard that he comes in a golden colored form, which Lord Chaitanya was the color of molten gold, more or less. I don't know if you've seen molten liquid gold. I once saw at the Rand Easter show, they had a display there, and they poured a gold ingot, like a solid piece of gold, but it's still liquid and hot, and they said, anyone who can pick it up can have it. You would have lost your hand, unfortunately. So yeah, but it's quite amazing, this rich, effulgent gold color, molten gold. So yeah, I hear that the incarnation in Kali Yuga is a golden color. Lord Chaitanya said, yes. And Sanatana said, and I heard that he comes with many associates, and they establish the Sankirtan movement of the chanting of the holy names, which is what Lord Chaitanya was doing at that time. And Lord Chaitanya understood what Sanatana Goswami was trying to do. And he said, stop your clever games, Sanatana, and let me tell you about the Shakyavesh avatars. In other words, if you're having a sort of a debate, a bit of an argument or dispute about something and you're losing, change the subject. Change the subject. So Lord Chaitanya was Chana Avatar, hidden avatar. And there were occasions when he displayed the fact that he was God, but very, very few and far between, extremely few, actually, and far between. And otherwise, generally, people just thought he's this most extraordinary devotee, most incredible devotee. They'd never seen a devotee like that before. So anyway, Lord Chaitanya then, at this point that I just read this couple of verses from, Lord Chaitanya is still living in Navadweep, which is West Bengal. It's still there. It's big town, small city. It's more like a big town, right on the Ganges, just 100 and something kilometers north of Calcutta. So he was staying there, but as we read, he made a decision to take sannyas because up till that point he was a householder, married man. In fact, he had had one wife and she died. Lakshmi Priya, she passed away. Just at a very young age, like not even maybe 20. And then his second wife was Vishnu Priya, who's considered his main wife. So he was a householder, and he was leading the Sankirtan movement. They had started in that area. This whole movement of sometimes many thousands of people going out and chanting the holy names of the Lord, particularly the Hare Krishna mantra, and various other mantras too, but particularly Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, and going through the streets of the whole area. And so many people were getting involved. But Lord Chaitanya felt concerned that I'm not reaching enough people. Because what he wanted to do was change the world. Now I'm operating in this area, and it's very nice. And the local people, so many, the majority, are really getting into it, and even some people who you just wouldn't expect are getting into it, like the Chand Qazi, who was the Muslim ruler of the area. He became basically like a devotee after meeting Lord Chaitanya and having a discussion with him. And interesting little point, if you've been to India, I assume you've all, or so many of you have been to India probably many times, and you see the Muslims around, and, without getting into it, generally you understand that these are people who are not, they're in a different space, you could say, in terms of religion and so on. Let's just put it that way. They have very different ideas. But in that place, there's a place where that debate took place between Lord Chaitanya and the Qazi, the Chand Qazi. Yes, it's like there's a pilgrimage place there, and it's owned by Muslims. And when I say Muslims, I mean, you look at them and you can see this is like a standard-looking Muslim. Yeah, with the beard, no moustache, and and the clothes. Yeah, but they're very friendly to the devotees, and they chant Hare Krishna with the devotees. Yes. And because they're descendants from that person, they're in his family. Right. So yes. So Lord Chaitanya, he really wanted to reach out, but he felt restricted because he was a married person. His mother was still living. His father had passed away, but his mother was still living. And he felt, a responsibility like that. And he was doing what he could under the circumstances, but he really wanted to reach out. So, plus, that was one thing. Plus, he was a married man. And, even to this day, in India particularly, and not just in India, but amongst Indian communities around the world, if someone is wearing saffron like me, then they're taken religiously or spiritually, they're taken more seriously, at least more easily taken seriously than someone who's, just a married man. Yeah, married man. Of course, we have our married men here, and they're very particularly Prabhupada Priya, very dedicated devotees to be taken very seriously. But still, those who are sannyasis like myself, particularly in India, taken extremely seriously. Whereas householders are kind of prone to be a bit sort of run-of-the-mill amongst the people, even if they are spiritually advanced. So therefore, Lord Chaitanya thought, in order to really get the message out, I am going to have to take sannyas, because then I'll become free of my responsibilities, you could say, or entanglements in family life, and I'll be able to just travel around freely and just spread the Sankirtan movement, which is the Yuga Dharma. The particular prescribed activity, religious activity, spiritual activity for this age is to chant the names of the Lord, particularly the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. So he felt that on one hand, he would be free to move about. On the other hand, he'd be taken very seriously, and that's what happened. But here he is, he's going through the process. He's made a decision, and now he's going to act on it. Right around this time of Makara Sankranti, the day the sun starts to move to the north. Yeah. So yes, so as we read the few verses, he told Lord Nityananda to tell 5 other devotees. They were the only ones who knew. And he spent the last day as a householder. And magically, you could say magically, by some higher arrangement, somehow or other, he was just at home. Everyone started coming and visiting him, like they knew this is going to be the last meeting, something like that. Everyone was coming, and hundreds and thousands of people came one by one during the course of the day. And the last one to come late, was a devotee named Kolavecha Sridhar, which in the Bengali language, Kolavecha means banana seller. Kela. Kola, Kela, it's, same thing. Just little difference of dialect. So Kolavecha, he was a banana, he had a banana business, you could say, selling all the different parts of the banana, the flowers, the fruits, of course, and the trunks, the leaves. So he came and he brought one pumpkin. Well, not one pumpkin, but he had cooked a preparation. And you're probably familiar with, it's a sweet. It's pumpkin cooked in milk, boiled in milk, and sweetened. So it's a sweet and it thickens. Yeah. And he brought some of that. That was the last meal that Lord Chaitanya had before leaving home. Then in the middle of the night, sort of, or very early morning, he left home with Lord Nityananda and the other ones that we read the names of, Chandrasekhar, Mukunda, who was a great singer, and a couple of others. They left and they swam across the Ganges, and then they walked, or actually Lord Chaitanya ran to Katwa. I don't know if any of you have been to West Bengal, if you know the places. Katwa is a city now. That's where Lord Chaitanya took sannyas. So Lord Chaitanya arrived like maybe today or yesterday, whenever it was, well, actually about 510 or 13 years ago. He arrived there and he went to the ashram of this Keshav Bharati, who was a sannyasi and who would initiate people. And he arrived there and he said, I want to take sannyas today. And Keshav Bharati looked at Lord Chaitanya. Lord Chaitanya was 24. 24. What's your age?
27.
Okay. Bit younger than you. Yes. 24, young. And normally people take sannyas when they're old. Me, I'm 71. You can take sannyas when you're that age. Actually, what was I? I was 43 when I took sannyas, yeah. In fact, we don't, in ISKCON, we don't let people take sannyas unless they're 40 minimum, and 50 is preferred. So he said like that, yeah, here I am, give me sannyas. And Keshav Bharati looked at him and recognized him, that, oh, I know who you are. Lord Chaitanya at that point was known as Nimai Pandit. I know who you are. You're that scholar, Nimai Pandit, and you're a married man. You can't take sannyas. Now, you can be spiritual, no problem. Be very spiritual, but don't take sannyas. Go home to your wife and your mother and look after them. That would be the right thing to do. And he told Lord Chaitanya, like Krishna, Lord Chaitanya was extremely physically, not just handsome, you could say handsome, but beautiful. Actually, Krishna was so beautiful that sometimes when people would see him, they would faint. Just the beauty was just so overpowering. They just wouldn't be able to deal with it, and they'd faint. And even like warriors sitting on their horses or even on elephants sometimes would just faint and fall off and crash on the ground. He was just so incredibly good looking. I don't know, did anyone faint when they saw any of you? Anyone faint? No? One person? Just one? Not even one? Me neither. Maybe someone fainted in shock. But that would happen with Lord Krishna. Regularly, it would regularly happen. And Lord Chaitanya was basically like that. Male, not like female looking, male, but just so incredibly beautiful. So Keshav Bharati told him, listen, you're too good looking. You're too good looking. You're meant to take sannyas when you're getting old And, you reach that point and the ladies are not going to be interested in you any longer. You know what I mean? Yeah, so wait till that time. Otherwise, you're going to have all these ladies chasing after you. Yeah. But Lord Chaitanya said, no, I want to take sannyas now, today. And so Keshav Bharati tried for some time, he tried to sort of reason with him and convince him, but he completely failed, actually. And then, so now the morning's coming, and people are getting up, and the word got out. I don't know how, because I don't think they had WhatsApp in those days, or even cell phones. But the word got out that he was known as Nimai Pandit. He's here. He's going to take sannyas today. And they couldn't believe it, because it's part of that area that he would move around in. So the people came from Katwa, which is a city. It's fairly substantial. They gathered dozens, then hundreds, then thousands. And there was Lord Chaitanya, and sitting there, his head was not shaved yet. He had long hair, really long, black hair, just like effulgent black hair. So he still had his long hair, and he was still wearing his householder clothes, like white clothes. And the people gathered, and they're looking at Lord Chaitanya, who's just such an enchanting figure, and looking at Keshav Bharati, who's going to give him sannyas, and they're thinking, no, what is this? He can't do this. Then someone said to Keshav Bharati, if you give him sannyas, I'll kill you. And a few of them agreed, yeah, we'll kill you. And then someone else says, you give him sannyas, we will take your ashram apart, because he was living in just a little ashram. We will take your ashram apart brick by brick and throw it into the Ganges, because it's right on the bank of the Ganges. So you don't give him sannyas. And then Lord Chaitanya started preaching to the people that I must do this. I have to do this for my mission. I have come to give the people, to give the world the chanting of the holy names. And as a householder, I just cannot do it. And he managed to convince them, so they all accepted. So they're all sitting there, and for the ceremony, different things have to be brought. They have to do a yagya, fire yagya. There has to be a set of saffron-colored clothes. He has to shave his head. And so next step was to shave his head. So they called one Baba. His name was Madhu. I assume you know the meaning of the name Madhu. Madhu means sweet, honey, sweet. Honey, sweet, sweetness. His name was Madhu, and he was a Baba, professional. So Lord Chaitanya told him, shave my head now. And Lord Chaitanya is so beautiful, like we said. His hair was just so incredibly beautiful. And Madhu said, I can't do it. I just can't do it. And someone in the audience said, you shave his head, I'll kill you too. It was a real scene. It was a real scene. But Lord Chaitanya then insisted, you must cut my hair. So Madhu picked up his, like it's an open-bladed razor. They still use them. They call it a cutthroat, actually. It's quite a thing. But, when they know how to use it, it's okay. So, and he lifted it up. And he said, I just can't do it. And Lord Chaitanya just ordered him, you must do it. You have to do it. And so Madhu took some of Lord Chaitanya's hair, lifted the razor, and he was crying and crying. And he dropped the razor and he said, I can't see anything. I'm crying too much. So I can't cut your hair. And Lord Chaitanya told him, just cut my hair. So he picked up some hair, picked up his blade. He cut one hair. One hair. One hair fell to the ground. And as that hair fell to the ground, all the people there were about 1 million people there by that time. 1 million tears fell to the ground. And then he shaved Lord Chaitanya's head. And it was the last thing he did as a barber. That was it. He gave up his barber business from that time. So then they came to the actual ceremony. And, I don't know how familiar you are with how these things work. The giving of diksha, the giving of different mantras in different ceremonies. In the sannyas ceremony, which, of course I've been through and I've also given a few others sannyas, in the middle of the ceremony, you have to give the person who's now taking sannyas, the renounced order, you have to give him the mantras or the mantra. There's usually one sannyas, special sannyas mantra, which I won't tell you because I will be, at least you men, I would be giving you sannyas. And I don't know if you're ready. Maybe Badme. A little later. So Keshav Bharati, it's interesting. He was not a devotee. He was not a Vaishnav. Because in those days, amongst the Vaishnavas, amongst the devotees, there were a few, but very, very few sannyasis. Practically all were householders. So Lord Chaitanya, he was forced to take Mayavad's sannyas. So Lord Chaitanya, and even the Vaishnavas were not taken so seriously like the Mayavadis. Mayavadis means the people who think that it's all one. I am God, and you are God also, and we're all God. And I tell you what, you're really lucky I'm not God, because I would not be able to manage it. So he took sannyas. Well, he was taking sannyas. Now he's got to get the sannyas mantra, but it's not a Vaishnav, a devotee, like a mantra dedicated to Krishna. So he told Lord Chaitanya, come over, put your right ear next to me. So Lord Chaitanya came over sort of, Keshav Bharati is about here. Lord Chaitanya is about here. So Keshav Bharati spoke the mantra. Lord Chaitanya said, I couldn't hear it. Can you say it again? And Keshav Bharati came a little closer and repeated that mantra, this Mayavad mantra. And he repeated it, and Lord Chaitanya said, I didn't get it this time either. Can you give it to me again? It's the third time. And Lord Chaitanya said, I may have got it. Let me just repeat it to you, and you can tell me if I got it. So Lord Chaitanya then leant right over into the ear of Keshava Bharati and spoke a Vaishnav devotee sannyas mantra into his ear. And in other words, because the giving of the mantra is the central focal point of the whole initiation, whatever type of initiation it is. Even, we give the Hare Krishna mantra. It's the focal point of first initiation. So Lord Chaitanya spoke that Vaishnav mantra into his right ear and asked, did I get it? Was that the right mantra? It was a completely different mantra, a Krishna mantra. But it had such an impact on Keshav Bharati. He was now transformed into a devotee. And he said, yes, that's the mantra. That's it. So Lord Chaitanya actually gave him sannyas. Yeah, so all these things happened. It's an interesting story. I mean, there's a bit more, but that's the main part. Like the next morning, that same morning, back in Navadvip area, back where Lord Chaitanya had been living, all the devotees, everybody found out he's gone. Because he'd gone. He's gone. He's gone to take sannyas. Oh no. They had become so attached to Lord Chaitanya. So extremely attached. One person went to Advaita Acharya, one of the close associates of Lord Chaitanya, and said, I can't take it. Nimai Pandit has gone. I cannot live. I'm going to go to the Ganges and throw myself in and commit suicide. And he started moving in the direction of the Ganges, and Advaita Acharya told him, stop! Stop! And the man said, no, you can't stop me. Without Nimai Pandit, I cannot live. Advaita Acharya said, no, I'm not trying to stop you. Just please wait for me. I want to come with you. Yeah. So all types of things like this were happening. It was really extreme. Okay. Anyway. Then Lord Chaitanya wanted to just go out into the world. But Lord Nityananda, who was with him, wanted him, because he hadn't said goodbye to everyone. He wanted him to go back, at least to somewhere near where he'd been living, so the people could come and just say goodbye to him. But Lord Chaitanya was not willing to. So Lord Nityananda had to trick him. He had to trick him. He took him on a certain route that Lord Chaitanya didn't know, and kept telling him, we're on our way. We're going to Vrindavan. And there were some cowherd boys along the way. And one of the devotees would run ahead and say, when the sannyasi comes by and asks you, is this the road to Vrindavan? Just say yes. Just say yes. It's the road to Vrindavan. Just keep going. It's not too far. So Lord Chaitanya's coming, and he'd ask the cowherd boys, is this the road to Vrindavan? Yes, yes. Oh, good. And off he'd go. And he actually went to a place called Shantipur, which is not far from Mayapur. It's a few kilometers, like 10 kilometers. And they're following the Ganges. And Lord Nityananda's telling him it's the Yamuna. We're getting close. We're almost there. And Advaita Acharya came in a boat to pick up Lord Chaitanya and take him the rest of the way. And Lord Chaitanya saw him and said, what are you doing in Vrindavan? How did you get here? But then Advaita Acharya explained, and Lord Chaitanya agreed. And he went and met with the devotees. For about a week he spent, as a sannyasi. So right now, this is the time when Lord Chaitanya took sannyas. It's a very sacred time. Very important time, actually. Yes, so like this, it's a pastime, it's a leela. But these leelas, of course, we have to get the right perspective on the leelas, otherwise you can end up misunderstanding the pastimes quite badly. I mean, even really badly, actually. But this is nice pastime of Lord Chaitanya. It took place right around this time, right around Makara Sankranti. And when the Lord comes, well, Lord Chaitanya came because he wanted to spread the chanting, and he did. At least he spread it all over India. He went down to South India, right down to Kanyakumari, and all the places, Tirupati. Maybe some of you been to Tirupati. There's a shrine there to commemorate when Lord Chaitanya visited there. In Sri Rangam, which is in Tamil Nadu, there's a shrine there. Sri Rangam's the biggest temple in India. It's the biggest temple in India. Yeah. It's the biggest temple in Tamil Nadu and the biggest temple in India. Sri Rangam. Lord Chaitanya visited there and spent 3 months through the rainy season in Sri Rangam. Any of you been to Sri Rangam, Tamil Nadu? Wow, it's really interesting. Oh yeah. Because that part, with respect, the Muslims didn't really reach that far. I mean, they reached some parts of South India, but not like North India where they were just everywhere. But some parts, so like in North India, there are no old temples. Means the oldest temple you'll find is about 500 years old. 450, 500. But in South India, you still get the old temples and big temples, Rameshwaram and Madurai and all these places, and Sri Rangam. So Lord Chaitanya went there, and he was preaching all over. That was his mission, and influencing people, thousands and millions of people, to take to Krishna consciousness. And one devotee asked Prabhupada once, why did Lord Chaitanya not go outside India? He just stayed in India. And Prabhupada said, Lord Chaitanya left the rest of the world for me. Prabhupada said, yeah, for him to preach in. And he did. Sure, he really did. But let me conclude. Let me just tell you, because the Lord comes, and generally, like Krishna, like Lord Ram, who, you're all very familiar with, they perform so many pastimes, so many leelas, which are really, so astounding. People, to this day, people, like I remember when Ramanand Sagar, the producer, he first made Ramayan serial, and it was I forget which day of the week, but it was a certain day of the week at a certain time during the day. It wasn't at night. It was during the day. And I remember I was in Vrindavan, but I had to fly out from Delhi at some time, sort of in the afternoon or whatever, something I forget exactly. And so you get a taxi to the airport, and we got to Delhi, and the streets of Delhi were empty. There, and if you're familiar with Delhi, it's mayhem, almost 24 hours a day. The roads, sure. Yeah, and this was middle of the day. There was hardly a car on the road and hardly a person walking along the street. And I asked the driver, what happened? And he said, yeah, Ramayan, it's on right now. So everyone, millions and tens of millions of people watching it. So, and that was just at that time, not too long ago. Not long ago. So these things, the pastimes of the Lord, the character of the Lord, they're so compelling, so extraordinary, and so wonderful that people, when they hear them nicely, they just get fascinated and attracted. Yeah, and that's one of the main parts generally of the appearance of the Lord. To do things which will attract people when they hear that he did this, he did that, they'll become attracted and they'll become his devotees. So last thing I'll do, I'll tell you a little story, just short story. It's also about Lord Chaitanya at Sri Rangam. At Sri Rangam, there's a like what would you say? A shrine. There's a shrine there commemorating the visit of Lord Chaitanya, just outside the main entrance of the temple. It's a huge complex with many walls, and right outside the main first wall, outside the main entranceway, is the shrine dedicated to Lord Chaitanya, because he stayed there during the rainy season. So there's very nice pastime, really very nice pastime of Lord Chaitanya that happened there. He was going every day to have darshan of the deity. Is Ranganath, is Lord Vishnu lying down. Lord Vishnu lying with Lakshmi at this end, his head's at this end. There's a doorway about this size, and you have to stick your head in almost and look, to see this kind of funny arrangement, but it's very traditional. And the deity is a good couple of meters long. So Lord Chaitanya would go every day, a few times, to have darshan of the deity. A beautiful deity, they look after the deity very nicely. And every time he went, there, just before you enter into where the actual altar area is, there's a hall, a big open stone hall with pillars and massive Garuda, huge Garuda he's about. I don't know, 15 feet tall or something. And anyway, it's a big hall. So Lord Chaitanya, he'd go through there and then inside to the altar area. And every time he'd see, there was one man, one devotee, sitting on the side with a book, and just sitting there with the book. And he was there whenever Lord Chaitanya would go, in early morning, late morning, midday, afternoon, evening, 4 or 5 times a day he'd go. He was always there. This man was there just like that, the entire day, just sitting there with the book. And Lord Chaitanya noticed that sometimes the man was not just looking at the book, very intently, but the man was actually crying. And Lord Chaitanya wondered, what is this man doing? So one day he went and spoke to him, and he asked him, my dear sir, what are you doing? Please explain. And so the devotee told him, my guru instructed me, every day I must read Bhagavad Gita. So here I am. This is Bhagavad Gita, and here I am. And that's what I do every day, all day. I'm here with my Bhagavad Gita. And Lord Chaitanya, actually, I missed a little point, had also noted the man was crying sometimes, but sometimes some local devotee would come by him and talk to him briefly and laugh, like he's laughing at him, sort of mocking him. So so Lord Chaitanya really wanted to know what's going on. So what are you doing? Well, my guru said I must read Bhagavad Gita. This is Bhagavad Gita. Here I am. That's it. And Lord Chaitanya said, that's such a nice thing to do. It's just really great. But sometimes I see some of the other local devotees come by and they speak to you briefly and they laugh at you like you're doing something stupid. But actually you're doing something really nice. So why are they laughing at you? And the devotee said, the thing is, they are local people, they know me. And I am illiterate. I cannot actually read. But I got the order, so all I do is I just look at the book. That's what I do. I turn the pages sometimes. And sometimes they come by and say, oh, Pandit Ji, what verse are you reading? And I cannot tell them because I can't read it. And they laugh at me. And Lord Chaitanya said, okay, I see. But then why is it that sometimes I see you're sitting there and tears are just coming from your eyes? Tears of spiritual ecstasy. What is it? And the devotee said, the thing is, sometimes I look at the cover of the book and I see there's the picture of Lord Krishna. He's driving the chariot of his devotee Arjuna. And I think that, look at this. This is God himself. And Arjuna's the devotee. Arjuna should be driving the chariot for him. But Krishna is so kind to his devotees, so affectionate, that he'll do something like that for his devotee. Even like driver is common man's job. It's not some special job. But he is God, and he'll do this. He's so kind to his devotee. He'll drive the chariot for his devotee. And when the devotee says, go this way, he goes that way. And when the devotee says, go the other way, and he goes the other way. Like he's a servant being given instructions, but he's God. And when I see this and I think about how merciful is Krishna, I just become overwhelmed and I cannot stop myself. I just cry. And it happens like that sometimes. And Lord Chaitanya then said to him, you cannot read Bhagavad Gita, but you have understood Bhagavad Gita. And then Lord Chaitanya said, actually, you are the authority on Bhagavad Gita. Yeah. So, nice little story. You can find it in Chaitanya Charitamrita. It's there. Yes. So Lord Krishna, Lord Chaitanya, Lord Krishna, such amazing person. And if we get to understand them clearly enough, we'll appreciate that. And as we appreciate that, then it'll strike us, I must serve him. I must become his devotee. I must do that. I have to do that. In any other position that I might take in relation to him would be improper. I have to become his servant. So there you go, devotees. Hare Krishna. Thank you for coming. And yesterday in Ermelo, I went on forever. For any of you who were there, I apologize. It was too long. It really was. But anyway, I kept it shorter this evening. So look, there are only two questions. I'll quickly answer them. Then we'll have what? We'll have Arati. Oh yes, we'll have Arati. And then I guess Prasad. Right, good. So yes, yesterday I mentioned that when a person is wearing tulsi beads, and if they're dying, we should not touch them. May I ask why, please? Now, you did not understand what I said, actually. What it was that as Ajamil was dying, but he was calling out for his son Narayan, chanting the name of the Lord, and the Yamadutas came, the messengers of Yamaraj, the Lord of Death. They came to take him away to be judged, because he was a very bad person. He was really like a human disaster. And so he would have ended up in extremely bad shape, in a bad place. But he was chanting the name of a name of the Lord. So the Yamadutas came to just drag the soul out of the body. But then the Vishnu Dutas, the messengers of Lord Vishnu, came and stopped them and said, you cannot take him, even though he was so sinful, but now he's chanting the names of the Lord. You cannot touch him. So the Yamadutas were a bit confused, and they went back and asked Lord Yamaraj, what is this all about? Someone is chanting some names, and we can't take them. And Yamaraj explained, yes, that the devotees, if they're chanting the names of the Lord, also if they are wearing tulsi beads, you means the Yamadutas, the messengers of the Lord of Death, who take, just the ordinary people from the street, that type of person. You're just typical, not non-devotees. They take them to be judged for all the, what is usually quite a lot of nonsense that they've done in the course of their lives. Yeah, and then they get sent to whatever their next birth would be. But yeah, Yamaraj told his messengers, don't touch these people when they're dying. If they're wearing tulsi beads, don't touch them. Leave them. Yes, because they're on their way back to the kingdom of God. They're not for us. Yeah. So, but then someone else raised the point yesterday that can you wear tulsi beads? I mean, these are relatively big ones as neck beads go. A lot of devotees wear small ones. smaller. I mean, there are all sorts of different sizes. You've got smaller ones, right? Tulsi? Oh, you don't have? Kyung. Anyway, you should have. Right. Yeah, so someone asked, if a person is still eating meat, are they allowed to wear them? You know, of course, there's no law. The police are not going to come and arrest you. And in South Africa, I don't think the police will ever come and arrest you. You can just do what you like, and it'll be fine. Yeah, I think they're the leaders of all of that. But anyway, so, you know, because they're very sacred, they really are very sacred, it is definitely best that people are vegetarian. Because, you know, with respect, you know, to people who may still be eating meat. I mean, people who are interested in Krishna consciousness who are still eating meat, and there are many. You know, people who are just coming from ordinary everyday life and just getting into it, and they haven't really sort of got into it completely yet. They're sort of transitioning, you could say, into a Krishna conscious way of life. So they may not be vegetarian yet. What can you do? That's life. I mean, generally, after a period of time, if they really become convinced and start practicing, then practically always they stop. I mean, it's extremely rare that anyone continues beyond a certain point. So yeah, it's best because they're so sacred, and just out of respect, you know, like the books, Bhagavad Gita, the printed book, we don't put it on the ground. If somehow it falls, we lift it up, touch it to our heads as a mark of regret and respect, like that. So Tulsi's on the same level. If your Tulsi beads, here are my beads. I've been using these for a little over 30 years. So if they fall to the ground, you have to pick them up and touch them to your head like that. Yeah, out of respect. So, you know, it's best. But, you know, you can't force people. And some people, you know, they want to be devotees. They really do. But they still haven't come to grips with these, like even cigarettes, you know. You do find devotees sometimes who they still have a cigarette. They haven't got over it yet, so to speak. So, you know, it's definitely better to be vegetarian if you're going to wear Tulsi beads. But you should definitely wear Tulsi beads, because all of us are going to reach that point. Some of us, you know, according to the law of averages, at least, some of us sooner than others. Yeah, it's not a matter of when, it's just a matter of if. And, you know, sometimes the youngest one is the first to go. So, yeah, it's going to happen. So, best to become a devotee, wear Tulsi beads, get some chanting japa mala. You know, I'm sure some of you have, maybe all of you have, and use them. Yeah, and wear Tulsi beads. And then when the great day comes, then the Yamadutas will not take you. But the representatives of Lord Vishnu will, and you'll be okay. Either you'll go back to Godhead, or you'll be born by their arrangement in a devotee family. Okay, so here's our second question. When Bhishmadev was dying on a bed of arrows, waiting to leave his body, he was waiting for the sun to change what directions or something? Oh, direction to the north. Okay. Is this the same time you're referring to? No. You know, the thing is, if you read Bhagavad Gita, if or when, I hope it's just when and not if, but because you should read Bhagavad Gita. In the 8th chapter, at the end of the 8th chapter, there is a sequence of, it's, 5-6 verses or something like that, which is explaining about different times that a person may, we would say, leave the body. The soul may leave the body or die. Yeah. And certain times are more auspicious than other times. And, there's a whole in the Vedic literatures. I mean, we do get into it to some degree, not as much as some people, but there's a science of auspiciousness and inauspiciousness and degrees. Like the early morning is the most auspicious time of the day. And it's just easy to understand, because when it really is early, it's very peaceful. Yes, and there's not, the hustle and bustle and all of that. It's very peaceful, and it's much easier to do spiritual activity than in the middle of the day when, life is busy, or even the evening when it is peaceful again, but generally in the evening you're tired. At least many people, they're tired after a day of work. So the evening is the morning is the most auspicious, it's about up to roughly 7-ish, 7:30-ish. It can ultimately be understood in relation to when the sun rises. The next auspicious, but not as auspicious, but it's not bad, is the evening. And the middle of the day is not so good. Yeah. And there's all sorts of considerations like that, which, it's a whole science, actually. So at that point, at the end of the 8th chapter, you can have a look in your Bhagavad Gita. You'll see that Krishna is advising, don't die when the sun is in the south, means the southern summer, means now. It's for people like Bhishma who could control when they die. And I don't think that's you or me. It's for a different class of person altogether. Yeah. Or at certain times, and you have a look and you'll see. Auspicious and inauspicious times, particularly for dying. So Bhishma, the questions about Bhishma, and he was saying things like that. He wanted to wait till the sun was in the north, means the northern summer. Yeah, because he could control when he died. And he was controlling. His body was so full of arrows, you could not put 2 fingers down between any 2 arrows. I mean, we're talking must be 100 or more or something. And, you got that many arrows, you got to be dead. But he wasn't dead. He was okay. He was fully conscious and coherent. And he instructed Maharaj Yudhisthira. And then when the sun reached a certain point, he fixed his eyes on Krishna, who was there, and voluntarily left his body. So, yeah. But, for devotees, for those who are practicing Krishna consciousness, regularly, which is, it's so easy. It really is so easy and nice. So if you read those verses at the end of the 8th chapter and read what Prabhupada, his explanations, his purports, and you'll see Prabhupada explains very clearly that devotees do not need to worry about those considerations because they are in the hands of Krishna and under the protection of Krishna. So, yes, so we don't need to worry. But Bhishmadev, somehow he had it in his mind, some consideration like that. And so therefore he said that. Hare Krishna. There you go, everyone. Okay, so we're not too much over time. Let us stand up and we will have arati and then prasadam. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.